Good morning. I'm Mr. Knowles, and this is Justin, and we're here to continue a conversation that we had about, do schools kill creativity? Before we get started, I think, Justin, you have something to show me.
Yeah,
Yes?
I do.
Okay. So,
A lot of creativity and a lot of expression through art happens when you're happy, not when you're sad. Because when you're sad, you are very worrisome of what you'd expose to the world. Sure, you have some exceptions like Edgar Allan Poe and things like that, but they're rare.
okay.
And I think that this current school system makes people unhappy. Loneliness is going up, and it's kind of bad.
So you think
and-
schools are in charge, or the schools are essentially the cause of unhappiness and loneliness?
They're not exactly the cause, but they are one of them. And I think if we
Okay. All right. Well,
make-
show me your little thing that you got here. I'm really curious.
Okay,
About this. Go ahead.
Can you, if we have the Chromebook viewed on the stream, we can do this.
All right. So you're just doing a Google search, and you're saying,
Those are the results that.
okay. So what you're saying, go. If you don't mind, we
Yes.
gotta. Because so do it right there. Do it
Okay.
right there on that screen. No. Do it. Sorry, it's not working.
It
It's
just
not. It's not behaving like we want it to.
I
Go
got
ahead.
it,
Try
I got
that. Okay.
We go here and then do it.
Okay. Holy moly. So to make this a little bit more clear.
Yes.
School makes me want to commit, smoke, cut. What's KMS?
Kill myself.
Kill myself. Cry, kill others, give up, throw up, or just to kill.
Yes.
All right. So I am, okay, so that's what school makes you want to do.
That's
now,
what-
and you think school is in charge of that?
I think that school is one of the reasons for it.
Okay, so I would like to ponder this, suppose this to you. When people learn, the whole learning process
Yes.
is basically people having to explore new space, new intellectual space, new memory, new everything, and create that. And so a teacher is essentially in charge of essentially pushing students to a new place. So you could make a case that all schools are supposed to essentially shift students to a new place, and essentially, and oftentimes to go where maybe the student wouldn't want to go on their own. So there's this institution called school, and we want you to do new things. So what you're saying is those new things end up with search results like we have there.
Yes.
So how do you reconcile, so then how do we get kids to learn? And I think we're both in agreement, the more you learn, the more foundational knowledge you have, the more abilities you'll be able to use, the more things you'll be able to do. Once you have a good foundational knowledge, you can then use that to be expressive, to be intellectual, to be scholarly, to be athletic, to be all kinds of things. Agreed?
Yes.
So we need to teach that foundational stuff, but what you're saying is in that teaching, we're killing creativity.
Yes, and then I think you're killing creativity and how you do it. For an example, there are many different types of school systems, even though the biggest one is public schooling. A good example of this is suburban schools. In this kind of school,
Say that again?
suburban schools,
Okay, like, is that like February but Sudbury?
it's just suburban.
So how do you spell that?
Subury, I think.
Sudbury, okay.
And how the school works is that the entire school is in a democracy where the students are just as powerful as the staff. And
I'm
every
already not liking this.
and every single student has a say in what happens at the school. When explosions are going on, they have a 5-hour meeting about deciding if the student is exposed or not.
Okay.
It shows how rare it is in this kind of system.
All right. And
And-
is that okay? So keep going, kids. So there's other examples, I'm sure.
So not only this, but the students are able to learn what they want to,
Oh,
and they are
interesting.
able to do when they want to. Not only that, but there's a free market.
So there's a whole philosophical movement based upon the idea that a student should lead the teacher, that a teacher should be around to essentially nudge the student away from trouble and towards whatever their curiosity might be. But we have this issue in that instance, the students don't know what they don't know. It's an unknown. Like, how can I possibly know what I don't know? Right? So in a youthful situation, so how do you then give students enough information so that they can proceed with their curiosities? That still takes like that imposition of, I need to take you from a place you are to a place maybe that you wouldn't have gone on your own, to at least shine some light on or get you to see something for yourself.
Well, again, with that free market thing, in order to sell something at the school, you have to like file, if you can, to the body and stuff like that.
Right.
So this would give you actual skills to be an entrepreneur in the real world. And when you're just in the first grade, you can sell popsicles and you can make this actual business at school and have actual experience in it instead of just, oh, here's some imaginary numbers in Algebra 2.
So, okay, so you're vilifying the imaginary numbers thing again.
Yes, I am.
Wouldn't you say the democracy element of school, wouldn't you say that's what we have now? Isn't schools today essentially the distillation of hundreds of years of democratically infused education? I mean, we have a local school board. They're elected. They get to decide what we're teaching.
Okay, I'll rebuttal that real quick. Mr. Shirota, my first year here at Troy in the history class, told me that I had no rights at school. Does that sound like a democracy?
It doesn't sound accurate. Well, if you have no rights, no, that's absolutely not a democracy. But who has the power and who has the rights? It's actually this idea of law. The law is what's essentially the entity that's distilling the rights. And I think you have lots of rights. You have rights to sit here and talk to me and to say really whatever you want. And that is absolutely protected. So we have a bunch of things that are protected. Now, to go to the absolute and say you have no rights, that's a whole debate for another time.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think you do have a lot of rights. And those rights are the result of our democracy. They're the results of our society deciding these are the things that every student and every person should be able to do. And I think you have a lot of rights. Are they limited? I'll give you that. They're very limited. Is the limitation designed to allow for education? I think yes. Is the limitation designed to allow it to be maybe easier for the teachers to regulate you? I'll give you that maybe that's the case. But I think it's truly in a democratic mindset designed to facilitate learning. And what would be best is if, like, for every student there was a teacher. There was a teacher, like, and that would be best. But unfortunately, I have, instead of just you, I have 30 students.
Yes.
Or 40 students, right? So it makes the environment of teaching a little bit rules dependent, because, well, if I allow for all this independence and if I allow for all this autonomy, then I mostly have chaos, right? I don't have an organized educational structure.
Well, in Britain, the school system there has a lot of students that have anger problems, and it's chaotic, right? In the current school system. So what they do is they send them to a school that's specifically made for them. And what do they do there? They have no rules. I'm being serious.
So the kids who are breaking the rules go to a school where there is no rules.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yes. And before this school was made, they had a lot of those kids going to imprisonment. Guess what number of kids going to imprisonment after that school was made is?
Well, that's a brilliant idea. I like that idea a lot. But you bring up an exception to defend the rule, the majority. So in the exception of the kids not liking rules, there's this other school. But there's a lot of kids thriving in school. There's a lot of kids like doing some amazing things and being pushed in extraordinary ways. I remember very recently, I'm still a student. I'm a student of life. But I'm pushing, like, for example, I want to learn astronomy. Like the constellation, I'm pushing myself. It's uncomfortable, sometimes it's frustrating, and that hard work sometimes pays off. Sometimes not. That's kind of the nature of life. because it's not paying off, or because I'm frustrated, and because I may want to go back to your screen, I mean, that might cause some of those emotional responses. I shouldn't say it should cause that. In a mature adult like me, I'm going to go ahead and assume that. I don't necessarily channel that frustration into wanting to do some really bad things. Those frustrations exist. I should learn to manage those frustrations. So I think a very strong case could be said for, we need to potentially also teach some emotional intelligence. There's actually a whole philosophy, the whole study, area of study where it's emotional intelligence. So that students are, you know, school makes me want to, and then all that horrible list. Go ahead and show that list one more time if you don't mind. That horrible list right there is a result of people whose emotions are not necessarily healthy. And so I think school would be it'd be in everybody's best interest if there was a little bit more emotional education. Like, how do we handle those emotions? Because right now, without a sophisticated understanding of emotions, I think you tend towards the poles, either anger or happy, and you don't acknowledge the middle ground enough. And that's a whole slew of people. That whole search query is the result of people who are not managing emotion. Inside of that, we also need to figure out how to still teach, right? That's really important, and that pushing kids to these realms that are unknown and they're uneasy with. Just because they're uneasy doesn't mean it's bad. And that's what I think the emotional intelligence would benefit from.
Well, a good thing you brought up is the fact that you specifically want to learn astronomy, right?
True.
That's exactly my point. You are,
good point. I never yet. So in my 30 some years of, in my 30 plus years of living, I've not been ever made available to me an astronomy class. That's what your point is.
My point is that you want to learn astronomy, right? And you said it's frustrating, you said it's grueling, and you said it's hard. But because you want to do it, you are able to push through that. So with that in mind, do you need a teacher to guide you through that if you want to do it? And you are learning this your way, right?
Well, there's two things to be said. To your point, there's never been a class available to me. Like, that's what I wanted to learn. I've always been curious, and now I'm at a point in my life, and I also have a foundational skill set. So on the one hand, it's never been available to me, which is unfortunate. Like, that's a direction I would have loved to have gone. And yes, I could have in college, but I didn't, for lack of it. But I also have the foundational knowledge that I've been given through all my other mandatory classes that have facilitated my being able to learn and understand it.
So now you're going in the direction of, does school teach you to learn? Is that what I'm getting at?
Are you asking? So you're asking me, does school teach me to learn?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the case.
But
by giving me some skills.
By giving you some skills.
And also giving me some foundational knowledge.
Foundational knowledge. Okay. Well, again, if you're going down this path by yourself, and just you don't have much of a foundation in astronomy, right?
Well, I do in the physics, and I do in the optics, and I do in the photography. So I feel like I have a basis, but like things like the constellation, being able to identify them and understanding the different types of stars and all the different deep sky objects with which we could learn from and understand those. That's where I'm struggling, because there's a lot.
Okay.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, but since you want to do it, you're persevering, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, did you choose to take physics? Did you have a choice in what science you had to take, or were you forced to choose physics?
Well, there's a pretty well a pathway. Like, if you want to go to college, you got to take these classes. So I took those classes, and I did take a physics class. And in the physics class, did they go enough into orbital bodies and stellar objects and deep sky? No, not in my mind. Which is why, and I was curious then, and I'm curious now, and I'm able to pursue it. Much of the skills I learned in my physics class do translate to my being able to understand astronomy a little bit better. So I think we're kind of going round and round. What you're basically saying is that I should have been able to have the freedom and the choices to maybe go, and that the structure of, to go down the astronomy road, and the structure of schools is preventing the, that pursuit, that curiosity, and that joy, potentially.
Yes, which hinders
Right.
creativity.
And that joy stifles creativity.
Well, that want of
Yes.
joy.
Okay. Well, and I am of the opinion that we have to teach. We have to teach and have to give foundational knowledge. And so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. This is a great conversation about do schools kill creativity? You want to add anything at the end here?
No, I think I've said enough.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day.